Assalamualaikum. Welcome to the science video. We are going to focus on the physics section of combined science on the topic motion, force and energy. This is a big topic, and in this topic we'll be going through the subtopic on balanced and unbalanced forces. Force is a push or a pull that is exerted by one object on another. That is what we call as force. And what is the SI unit for force? The SI unit for force is Newton. Newton is denoted by a capital N. There are 4 learning objectives in this subtopic. For this video, we'll be focusing on the first learning objective, which is to identify and use different types of forces, including weight, which is gravitational force, friction, drag, air resistance, tension or elastic force, electrostatic force, magnetic force, thrust or driving force, and contact force. So, force can be categorized into 2, which are contact force and also non-contact force. What are the examples of contact force and non-contact force? In this syllabus, we'll be focusing on these forces that are listed in the table. Let's focus on contact force. There are 5 examples for contact force. The first one is reaction force. So what is reaction force? Reaction force is when an object is at rest on a surface. So the surface can be the surface of a ground, the surface of a table, any surfaces. For example, let's use table. In this example, the book will experience a reaction force. Reaction force is always going upwards. It always goes upwards. Here, the table will push up on the book. Another example that we can use is a car. Here, as you can see, there will be reaction force on the tires of the car because the car is resting on a surface. So the rod will push up the tires. So the tips to identify reaction force, you will see in question if the arrow goes upwards from the surface to any object on the surface. That will be reaction force. The next contact force is friction or drag. Friction is the opposing force acting on 2 surfaces. For example, a boy pushing a box. The tips to identify frictional force is, if you see the arrow for the motion here, the arrow for friction is always the opposite of motion. So if the motion goes to the right, friction will go to the left. So it will always be on opposite sides. Next is air resistance. Here, air resistance is a type of friction. Air resistance comes from the wind, so usually this will slow down motion. Here is a skydiver falling through the air. Here, before deploying the parachute, the skydiver is falling quite quickly. This is because the air resistance is low. So when the air resistance is low, the motion is faster. And then after deploying the parachute, there is higher air resistance. When the air resistance is higher, the motion will be slower. The next one after air resistance is driving force or thrust. Driving force is the force that is responsible to put an object into motion. For example, a car. Here, to identify the driving force or the thrust, look at the direction of the motion. If the direction of the motion is the same with the unidentified force, this force is the driving force. The last contact force is the elastic force or tension. So what is the difference between elastic force and tension? Elastic force is the force that resists the change in shape when an object is stretched or compressed. What is tension? Tension force is a pulling force applied by an object when it is stretched. This picture is showing rubber band being stretched. When you pull on the rubber band, that is what we call as tension force. And as you know, rubber band is elastic. It will go back to its original shape when you let go of the tension force. So the force opposing the tension force, that is what we call as elastic force. Let's wrap up this video with identifying the forces acting on a car. So this is a diagram of a car, and as you see here, this is the direction of motion, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 unidentified forces. So if you look at arrow A is the same direction with motion. Therefore, it is the driving force or thrust. And if you look here, there's an arrow from the ground going up to the object here, so that will be reaction force. And when you look at arrow C, you can see that the direction of arrow C is the opposite of direction of motion. And for arrow C, it is between the ground and the surface of the ground and the surface of the tire. So this is two surfaces. Therefore, it is friction. And the last one, here, arrow D, same as arrow C, it is opposite to the direction of motion. So D is a type of friction. The other type of friction that we've learned in this video is air resistance. With that, we have already finished the lesson on contact forces. I'll see you for the next video, part 2 for non-contact forces. Bye-bye.